Dave Mustaine thought he had finally made it. In the early 1980s, Metallica was still a band of unknown kids chasing a dream, but it was a dream that felt real to them. James Hetfield, Lars Ulrich, Cliff Burton, and Dave. 4 names, 1 mission. To make metal louder, faster, and harder than anyone else. Dave's guitar skills were wild. His riffs were sharp, aggressive, almost dangerous. But so was his behavior. When Metallica first started playing gigs and recording demos, the guys drank like maniacs. But Dave's drinking wasn't like the others. He got violent, unpredictable. One moment, he'd be laughing. The next, he'd be picking fights. One morning in 1983, after a rough night and too many crossed lines, Dave was woken up with 4 cold stares. No warning. No second chance. Just a Greyhound bus ticket and 2 words, "You're out." They kicked him out of the band he helped build. He didn't even get to say goodbye. As the bus pulled away, Dave sat with his guitar, fuming. His mind was racing. His heart was broken. But one thought kept playing louder than any riff. I'll make a band better than Metallica. That's when Megadeth was born. While Metallica replaced Dave with Kirk Hammett and went on to release their debut album, Kill 'Em All, Dave Mustaine was already in revenge mode. He didn't just want to succeed. He wanted to destroy Metallica's legacy with his own. He formed Megadeth with the fury of a man who had something to prove. His riffs were even faster, his lyrics darker, his anger deeper. While Metallica was gaining fans across the globe, Dave was sharpening his sound like a blade. But that anger was a double-edged sword. Megadeth's early albums were fast and brutal. Peace sells, but who's buying? Became a thrash metal classic. But behind the scenes, Dave's rage, addiction, and constant comparison to Metallica were poisoning his progress. Every success Megadeth had, Dave measured it against Metallica. And Metallica? They were moving like a machine. By the time Master of Puppets came out, they had become the kings of metal. Dave felt invisible. Interviews with Mustaine always circled back to Metallica. He accused them of stealing his riffs, using his ideas, and leaving him behind without credit. To him, he wasn't just kicked out. He was robbed. But to Metallica, especially James Hetfield, Dave's obsession had gone too far. For years, James Hetfield stayed mostly silent about Dave Mustaine. While Dave vented in interviews, James stayed focused on the music, the tours, the fans. But then something shifted. In a rare moment of honesty, James finally opened up. He didn't attack Dave. Instead, he sounded tired. "We've all gone through a lot. But at some point, you got to stop blaming everyone else," James said. Dave still sees himself as a victim. And that's sad. Those words hit hard. For decades, fans saw Mustaine as the wrong genius, the castaway who built something powerful from pain. But now, James was showing the other side. He wasn't denying Dave's talent. He was questioning his mindset. "We've all had rough journeys," James continued. "But if you live your life stuck in the past, you'll never grow." It wasn't just a message to Dave. It was a message to anyone who's ever been hurt, betrayed, or abandoned. Move forward or stay trapped. But could Dave let go? Or was the fire that made Megadeth also the fire that would never let him heal? As the years went by, both bands reached legendary status. Metallica became the face of heavy metal. Megadeth, though slightly behind in commercial success, built a fiercely loyal following. Dave had proven himself, over and over again, and yet, the shadow of Metallica never fully left him. There were attempts at peace, a few public hugs, a shared stage at the Big Four concerts. On the surface, things looked civil, but behind those smiles was a history too raw to erase. James respected Dave's talent. He even admitted that Dave's early guitar work helped shape Metallica. But that didn't mean they were friends. Not really. Too much damage had been done. Too many years spent apart, building empires on the ruins of friendship. Dave once said, "It's like a scar. You can heal, but the mark is always there." Still, something deeper was happening. Time was moving. The old anger was turning into quiet reflection. But with reflection came regret. Not just for what was lost, but for the years spent fighting shadows instead of embracing growth. And then, something unexpected happened. James Hetfield checked into rehab again. When news broke that James Hetfield had entered rehab again, the metal world paused. Fans were shocked. Friends were worried. And Dave Mustaine, he went quiet. For years, Dave had painted James as the enemy, the guy who helped kick him out, the face of the band that, in Dave's eyes, left him behind. But in that moment, something shifted. Dave tweeted something short. No insults. No passive-aggressive digs. Just 5 words. Wishing James strength and peace. And for the first time in a long time, it felt real. That wasn't rivalry talking. That was history. That was pain, brotherhood, maybe even guilt. Because Dave knew what James was fighting. Addiction. Insecurity. Loneliness at the top. The same demons Dave had battled for years himself. James had always seemed like the unbreakable frontman. But now, the armor had cracks. And maybe, just maybe, Dave saw a reflection of his own struggle in James' collapse. It wasn't just about who sold more records anymore. It was about survival. And Dave, he knew how lonely that road could be. Sometime after James went to rehab, rumors started to spread. Not from press releases. Not from managers. From crew members. People behind the scenes. They whispered about something strange. A letter. Allegedly, Dave had written James a personal message. Not through social media. Not through PR teams. A real letter. Handwritten. No one knew what it said. But insiders claimed it wasn't about the past. It was about healing. Some say Dave told James he understood. That despite everything, decades of bitterness, rivalry, and resentment, he never stopped respecting him. That beneath all the anger was a brotherhood broken by ego, addiction, and fame. Whether the letter ever reached James, no one knows. But that act alone, writing it, was something powerful. Maybe for the first time, Dave wasn't speaking as the guy who got kicked out. He wasn't speaking as the victim. He was just a man, reaching out to another man who once called him brother. And in that silence, fans began asking, could this be the start of something new? Or just the final attempt at closure before the curtain falls for good? Metallica and Megadeth fans have always been divided. Some worship Metallica's mainstream dominance. Others swear by Megadeth's technical brilliance. But now, a deeper debate had started. Was Dave right all along? Had he been unfairly treated? Or had he let bitterness define his story for too long? And what about James? Was his victim mentality comment cruel? Or was it a hard truth that no one else had dared to say? The internet exploded with opinions. Old interviews resurfaced. Heated arguments broke out between fan bases. Every quote was dissected. Every gesture analyzed. But buried in all the noise was a sad truth. Both men had suffered. James lost himself in addiction, even while standing at the top of the world. Dave spent decades haunted by a single decision made in 1983. And no matter how many albums they released or awards they won, neither of them ever truly escaped the past. Fans were starting to see that this wasn't just a rivalry. It was a tragedy, a story of two legends who might have ruled the world together, but instead spent 40 years apart, staring at the same scar from opposite sides. Time doesn't stop, not even for legends. Both Metallica and Megadeth are aging. The tours are fewer. The riffs, while still powerful, now carry a weight of nostalgia. And as the years pass, fans are beginning to ask a painful question. Will we ever see James and Dave truly reconcile? A surprise reunion? A single song together? A moment where the past is finally buried? Dave has hinted that he's open to it. I've let go of a lot, he said in a recent interview. If James ever wanted to talk, I'd be there. James, as always, keeps his words close. But his actions speak volumes. He's been more vulnerable lately, more reflective, less guarded. Maybe age softens pride. Maybe pain opens doors. Maybe there's still one last chapter to write. The truth is no one knows. But one thing is certain. This story isn't just about metal. It's about pain, pride, ego, and redemption. Two men shaped by anger, driven by greatness, bound by history, and maybe, just maybe, heading toward peace. Dave Mustaine and James Hetfield may never play a full song together again. They may never fully forgive or forget. But in every lyric, in every riff, in every silence between their words, their story echoes. louder than any solo, deeper than any bass line, because Metallica versus Megadeth was never just a feud. It was a mirror. One man's loss became another man's war. And even now, decades later, we're all still watching, still listening, still wondering what the fire had burned just a little differently.